Welcome to the next podcast of Millinery.Info. I'm your host, Lauren Ritchie. Thank you for joining me today for this episode with Maja Svensson. Maja was the winner of the Millinery category for the 2021 Hattermber Competition with her piece titled To Loved Ones. Thank you to our wonderful podcast sponsors for making this episode possible. The Essential Hat, Best Western Apollo Bay Motel and Apartments, Louise McDonald Milliner, That Millinery, House of Adorn, Hatters Millinery Supplies, Lifted Millinery, Be Unique Millinery, Judith M. Millinery Supply House, Hats by Lico, Hat Academy, Hat Mags, and Millinery Australia. You can find a link to each of these businesses in our show notes, either on your podcast app or through our website. If you've been enjoying listening to this podcast series, I'd like to invite you to sign up and show your support through becoming a Patreon of Millinery.Info. We've made a few changes over on our Patreon levels. So to give you an idea of the options, we've now got a small thank you to Millinery.Info. Millinery.Info, you inspire me. All the way up to being a Millinery.Info podcast sponsor. If you head over to www.patreon.com/Millinery.Info, it will show each tier in the local currency for you. Thank you for our current sponsors for making this episode possible. Thank you so much, Maja, for joining me today for this podcast with Millinery.Info. It's wonderful to have you as part of the series. I'd love to start with, how did you first become involved in millinery?
I've always been interested in vintage fashion and watching costume movies and seeing all these wonderful hats. But I really didn't have an idea of how a hat was made. And I've always been creative and doing various creative hobbies over the years. And I've attended various short courses over the years, painting and sewing and sketching. And then I stumbled across this millinery course in Sweden, in Gothenberg. And that was in 2015.
Fantastic. And who was teaching the course? What did you get to learn in it?
You see, here in Sweden, we have a qualified millinery education in Gothenberg. I think it's called the Cutting Academy, Tillskärarakademin in Gothenburg. And they also offer short courses. So I attended at first a weekend course where you really learned the basics. I had never seen a hat block before, so I really didn't know anything about how to create the hat. So I learned the basics of millinery there, and then I also attended summer course in Sweden.
Fantastic.
That same summer.
And you made a stunning piece for the Hattermber Competition run by Hatters Millinery Supplies. Could you tell us a little bit about that piece for those who haven't seen it?
Yeah, thank you so much. I created a headpiece for this competition called To Loved Ones. And the theme for the competition was the places you go after the pandemic. And this was the first time I attended the Hattermber competition, but I've heard about it before, and I've seen the beautiful pieces that people have created, and I really liked the fact that you will receive a kit. Everyone will receive the same kit, and then you have to be creative and use your imagination and create something from that. So in the kit, there was a straw, a bundle mat, and then there was a straw braid, a Petersham ribbon, and some veiling. So you had to use that. But of course, I live in Sweden, and Sweden is quite far from Australia. So the millinery material package was sent out early June. But it ended getting stuck up in customs, Swedish customs, because we had new custom regulations apparently for incoming goods from outside of Europe. So I ended up getting my kit July 29th.
Gosh.
And it was supposed to be returned to Australia, I think, August 25 or something like that. So yeah, so I mean, it was really, really hectic days. Luckily, I had summer vacation at that time. But I mean, I was never really sure that it was going to get to Australia even. So I had
nerve-wracking.
Really, really nerve-wracking and really, really intense. So, but the thing was that I, because I was waiting for this kit to arrive, I had really thought about the theme and started to create an idea in my head. And what really just popped up to me was the loved ones, because for me, that has been the core of this pandemic. You know, we have been separated from our loved ones, and I wanted to celebrate the fact that we could meet again. So I had this idea, but I didn't know what color the material would be that I received, and I really didn't know what materials it contained. So luckily for me, I received a ruby red kit containing basically, it was perfect for my idea. Yeah. So it was 10 quite busy days. I think I sat sewing from around 8 o'clock to perhaps 8 o'clock in the evening. So busy sewing.
And the shape that you made, so you formed a stunning love heart shape. Is that a block that you had, or do you free form that?
Yeah.
How did you go about making it?
No, it's actually a concrete heart. Because I didn't, I mean, I had an idea that I would create the heart, and at first, I mean, I didn't really know exactly how I wanted to shape the heart, because I didn't know what material I would receive. So when I had received the material, I started browsing the shops nearby, and I found this concrete heart. So I used that as a block, but of course you can't pin concrete.
Yes.
It was slightly tricky just to get it, to stay in shape. But it actually worked quite well.
It was a stunning shape. What is a stunning shape?
Yeah, and it's quite large too. Yeah, so I added some materials, of course. It's a lot of wire in this piece to get it to stay together and to hold this floating shape. And so it was almost like an open heart surgery because I had to keep a lid, almost like an opening on the backside to attach to this wide headband that I created, and just to be able to actually sew it together and to keep it stable. And so I spent quite a long time doing that, and just hiding the stitches and making sure that it didn't show, and then covered it with a lid on the back also.
Oh, wow. And it's such amazing detail as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So sweet.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also, I think what's interesting with millinery is that you don't always know what it will end up, or how your hat will end up. I mean, it's a process. So to begin with, I had an idea of the balloon just hanging down, but then I started playing with angles and just got the angle right. So
it was so fun and playful. Had you worked with a bundle mat before?
Never ever. I usually use parasisal straw when it comes to straw, and then I have used other materials, but never. But I actually like it because it's quite shiny. One negative thing is that it frays quite easily. So I really have to keep to, since this shape is quite round and small, you have to make sure that it doesn't fray too much on the backside. Yeah. I really like that material. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the beautiful braid that Hatters stock is a tresser braid, which was just such a wonderful um, pop of texture as well in the tails.
Yeah, exactly. I had to wire that also, so it's a wire between two straw pieces just to get the shape right. So yeah, it was. I must say, I mean, sometimes you really need to have a really harsh deadline uh, because it really boosts creativity in a way that, I mean, in the moment you can't really believe it, but in hindsight, I think if I would have had an entire summer to create it, it might have looked differently. But I'm not sure it would have looked better. So.
You mentioned your design process there. Do you normally sketch out a piece, or how do you develop a design?
No, I don't normally sketch. I sometimes sketch when I get ideas, but not specifically that I start every hat by sketching. It's more if I have an idea, just in a blur of a moment, that I might sketch it. But yeah, usually it's mostly in my head, and then I start to create something and let it build from there. With this hat, since I only had about a week to create it, I really had to sort of decide the process or put it into the different steps to be
Yeah.
able to make sure that I finished what I could finish at the same time. So it was quite structured. I'm not always that structured in my millinery work. I like to let my pieces evolve. Yeah. So it quite often doesn't really turn out the way I expected it to begin with. So.
It's a journey. And what type of other pieces do you enjoy making?
Yeah, I really enjoy the variety of millinery. So I think my pieces are anything from headbands to larger hats. Some are a bit more vintage inspired, and some are a bit more modern, and quite colorful hats, but the hats of different materials, really. So it's yeah, I don't think any hat is exactly like the other.
I've had another milliner
Yeah.
compare this, and she goes, I can't pick my hats pin. People go, oh no, I can tell which ones are yours. And she goes, oh, I can't. That's really
Yeah.
like she sees every piece as being so different. Um,
Yeah.
but people can still see a synergy and a likeness between them, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and that's probably true because, of course, you see your own pieces during the process that they are made, and then you get sort of blind, I guess. Yeah,
And
yeah. I usually, if people ask me to describe my hats, I usually say that they are quite creative, at least when it comes to Swedish measurements, because here in Sweden. We do have horse racing events, and people tend to wear dramatic hats to those events too, but it's still not that common. So people tend to think that my hats are quite creative. Yeah.
a lot of fun. So you mentioned
Yeah.
horse racing. What are some other occasions, or when are people wearing hats in Sweden?
Yeah, I think of course I mean there are so many different types of hats, but if I mean people on the street or out walking would perhaps wear a felt fedora or trilby or a summer straw hat on the beach in the summer, but we don't have hats as part of formal wear like you do in England and probably Australia too. So it's not we don't really have that tradition that the mother of the bride should wear a hat or the mother of the groom. But people do tend to wear hats to weddings. And I mean, with the headpiece trend that's been going on for a couple of years, people people could wear hats to festive events or parties, but it's not super common to wear hats in Sweden.
Yeah,
at least not the more creative hats. Yeah.
And where do you make? Do you have a studio space? What's your setup?
Yeah, so my apartment is my studio at the moment. So I have a studio apartment or an attic apartment with quite good lights, and it's an old building, quite charming. So it suits millinery. I think the lighting is good, which is important. It's my dream to have a separate studio, and that is something that I'm looking at, but I haven't just found it. I'm also because I'm planning to move in with my partner. Then we might have to find a bigger space, and hopefully it will include a studio.
That would be fantastic. So the pins don't take over the couch. That's just me.
Exactly, and the floor. There's a lot of pins here and a lot of hats. Yeah.
And do you have a large collection? What's your hat block collection like?
Yeah, I have been because in Sweden it's not that easy to find materials for hat making. Or when I started doing millinery, I didn't really know where to find the material, including the hat blocks. But I'm very fond of antique markets and vintage shops, and have stumbled across a hat block every now and then. And I was also really lucky to find there was this lady in my hometown who she had inherited a milliner's collection of hat blocks and material. So I bought lots of blocks from her.
Oh wow!
So I have a lot of vintage hat blocks. I don't know how many, perhaps 20 or so. And then I also create my own hat blocks.
Wow!
Because sometimes you need a shape that you don't really have available. And like I said before, sometimes you have to find a concrete heart.
You found objects. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to see you had an idea of the shape that you wanted to create, but you didn't have the form. So to be able to go and find, that's an amazing art. That's a skill.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's definitely what has drawn me to millinery, or kept me going with millinery. The fact that you keep on learning, and there's such a variety of steps and creative steps and processes in millinery, because you start out blocking or shaping something, and then the sewing part doesn't begin until you've done quite a lot of steps, and then it's the trimmings, and then you can be really creative also. So yeah, it's really interesting with millinery in that way, I think.
Yeah. And the blocks that you make, what do you make them out of?
I have used various kind of materials. I got a tip from I attended a couple of courses with Sarah Marshall at John Boyd Hat, which I know you have spoken to her before.
Yes, loved speaking with Sarah.
Yeah, exactly. So she gave me some tips that you can use, like electrical wires, to get around the shape if you're creating a headband or something. And otherwise, I've been using lots of wire, of course, and buckram and duo fabric also. Lots of layers of duo fabric. So also for shape. Yeah.
So cool. And do you start from a block you already have, or are you free forming it from a shape in your head?
You mean with the blocks that I create?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's more of an idea I have in my head. I've also sometimes combined an existing block with some other materials that I created to get a different shape. So yeah, I like that process too. I am an engineer as a profession, or I was an engineer before. But I like the problem solving thing with millinery also. So I really enjoy the hat block making part also.
Yeah, you can see a great transfer of your other skills coming in through that. And that explains
Yeah,
the
yeah.
aerodynamic nature of some of your pieces as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And so you've
yeah.
mentioned learning from Sarah there. What are some of the
Yeah.
other tips and tricks you picked up along the way that have been helpful in classes?
After I had attended the basic courses in Sweden, I started to experiment at home really, and try to learn a bit more about millinery in general, since I didn't really know a lot about millinery, and I didn't have so much material available. I didn't have any hat blocks, so I couldn't really I couldn't really create hats at home to begin with. But then I stumbled across this course, short course in south of England with the milliner Jane Corbett, who is a very talented and wonderful milliner. And it was at this lovely place called Westdean College, which is a college of arts and conservation situated on a castle. So that was like the best combination of everything, because I've traveled to England quite a lot because I really like England, and so to get to combine millinery and England was perfect. And so that course was about creating organdy headpieces, flower making and dyeing, which was all new to me, and that was in early 2017. So yeah, so that was really amazing. I learned lots of new tricks, and also just to be around so many other creative people, that was really amazing.
It's fantastic. And taking away those skills, what are those techniques have you transferred into your other pieces? Because that organdy technique is quite pretty and delicate, and some of your work is so structural.
Working with organdy, that's one of my favorite fabrics, and I really love the dyeing part of millinery. I usually buy white parasisal, and then I dye it into the color I want, because I'm quite picky with colors or color hues. So I learned that is something I really consider in a way a life-changing short course.
Wow.
Or life-changing for my millinery work, really, because I think you always learn new techniques when you attend courses, and then you bring them home and you experiment on your own, and use parts of that technique, and then you start to evolve it or try it on other materials and fabrics. Yeah, I attended a course also with Sarah Marshall at Westdean, which was sculptural millinery, so working with wire and crin and straw braid. And I think if I wouldn't have attended that course, I could never have created the two loved ones headpiece. So I mean, there are a lot of tricks you learn on a course that you really keep on evolving.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I really love that, and also because I mean, in Sweden you can learn a great deal about millinery, and definitely learn the craft. But I think the craft develops a bit more in countries, of course, where you wear hats more frequently, and there are new techniques coming along all the time. So attending short courses every now and then lets you learn these new aspects of millinery too.
Yeah. And also learning from different people and picking up their different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
I think makes you a holistic maker and milliner versus maybe learning from one person exclusively for the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, you will develop your own style of millinery. I mean, you don't want to just use the technique that another person is using. I mean, we are all unique milliners, really. So yeah.
Fantastic. And you've been making hats for some time now. Do you have some clients that you sell to? Do they come to you through your website? What's your interaction with them?
Yeah, so before the pandemic, I used to display my hats on art shows or art exhibitions. Of course, we haven't had too many of those lately because, I really do consider millinery art. I mean, it's wearable art, and it's also a good way to display your hats so people can try them and look at them, and it just opened their eyes to millinery. So that's one way. And then I have an Instagram page and a home page, and also connections. You meet people when you go to different events, like horse racing events, and you meet other like-minded people and people who are genuinely interested in hats, and they contact you. And so I'm building a network, I would say. I don't have a shop or an open studio, I think, for now, but hopefully one day. Yeah.
And when you're out and about, do you wear a hat yourself, or do you consciously go to events where there's opportunities to wear hats?
I think it depends on what type of hat it is, of course, because since I like to do these creative or dramatic sculpture hats, it's not something you can wear every day or on your way to work. So I, of course, try to attend events where you can actually wear those kind of hats. But then in the recent years, I started making more classical hats, like felt fedoras and trilbies, and that is, of course, something you can wear every day if you like. So yeah, so it depends. It depends. I should probably wear more hats, I think. So that's a mission of mine.
How has your hat making style and techniques evolved since you first began?
Yes, I think when I first began, I started to create hats that I had seen, and since I was interested in vintage fashion and vintage style, those first hats was quite vintagey, like Jackie O 1960s hats or little pillbox hats. And then as I started to learn more about millinery and seeing different milliners work, and also getting access to more materials to use and learning new techniques, it has evolved along the way. But I started doing the more dramatic and creative hats before I started doing the regular fedoras and trilbies, which in hindsight are easier to create. But I guess I was drawn to these free-form creative pieces. I loved working with straw and crin and wire, so of course I created hats from that material to begin with, and then I came across this lovely stash of vintage felt hoods. I started to use them and create both classic hats and headpieces and felt flowers. And I mean, you can really use materials in so many different ways. it keeps on evolving.
So what's an upcoming project you're looking forward to working on?
Yeah, I'm actually currently working on a bit of a Hattermber related project at the moment, because I'm recreating To Loved Ones or remaking it as more of a bridal version.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, and it's extra exciting because when I did To Loved Ones this summer, it was quite a hectic week or week and a half. So just to go back and you can look at the pictures, because I always take pictures to remember what I've done, which is very good when you're trying to do something similar again. So just to be able to do it at a slower pace and rethink some things and aspects of it. Yeah, so I'm doing it. It's like I said, a bit of a bridal version. Doesn't have to be bridal, of course, but it's love themed, so it's not suitable.
It suits very nicely.
Yeah. Oh, I'm also going to make a smaller version to fit like a flower girl or a mother-daughter thing, because that's also something I've been thinking about this fall, that could be quite nice. Because it is playful, so it could also suit someone younger. Yeah, so that's what I'm currently working on. And it's still winter here in Sweden, but the closer we get to spring, the more spring hats there will be, I suppose. So yeah, it's a fun time.
And how about for your business? Have you got some, you mentioned you've been working from home. Is there anything exciting and upcoming for that?
Yeah, I have actually just had, because I decided at the end of 2021 that now is the right time to take the next step with my millinery, because like I said, I started doing millinery in 2015, and it was a hobby that turned into a passion, and now that passion is turning into a kitchen table business, because I have just been approved for a business here in Sweden.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I've had my name approved. There are always some admin you have to do with the authorities to start a business here. And so I got the name Maja S Milliner, which is the name that I have been using for a couple of years for my hobby business. So yeah, so that's really exciting. Yeah, because I guess, it's like I said, there are certain milestones. I took those classes in England, like I described, as a bit of a life-changing moment or a milestone. And winning Hattermber, I think that was another milestone. It's like taking small steps that guides you forward. So yeah, so what I plan to do is that I will also offer a selection of my hats for hire. And in that way, I hope to contribute to more people getting the chance to wear hats here in Sweden. Because, it's not something you come across every day. But I still feel that it's that's an increasing interest in hats. That's so fantastic. Yeah, and if people can get the chance to try different hats, also to a lower cost, and there's the environmental aspect also of a hat being worn more than once and by more than one person. So yeah, it's something I've seen other milliners do around the world as well, but I don't think I've seen anyone do it in Sweden. So I don't know, I might be the first one.
That's so exciting. Yeah. Well, congratulations. We can't wait to see what you get up to in your newly launched business.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I really appreciate being part of your podcast. That's also a milestone, I think.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Millinery.Info with Maja. A great appreciation to our podcast sponsors for making this episode possible. Judith and Millinery Supply House, The Essential Hat, Hat Academy, Best Western Apollo Bay Motel and Apartments, Louise McDonald Milliner, House of Adorn, Hatters Millinery Supplies, Lifted Millinery, Be Unique Millinery, Hats by Lico, Hat Mags, That Millinery, and Millinery Australia. You can find a link to each of these businesses in our show notes, which is in your podcast app or through our website. If you've been enjoying listening to this podcast series or wondering how to become a podcast sponsor yourself, I'd like to invite you to sign up to your Patreon of Millinery.Info. We've made some changes to our Patreon levels, but to give you an idea of how you could show your support, head over to www.patreon.com/Millinery.Info. It will show the cost in your local currency. But to give you an idea of the tiers we have available, there is a small thank you to Millinery.Info. Millinery.Info, you inspire me. All the way up to being a Millinery.Info podcast sponsor. Thank you to our current supporters for making all of these episodes possible. Do you have an idea about someone you'd like to hear in this series? A mentor, an inspiring milliner? Send through your ideas via email or pop in our Instagram inbox. I'm your host, Lauren Ritchie. Thank you for joining me for this episode, and I look forward to talking hats with you again soon.